through my 4, I probably got like 2 pounds. But it's all real earthy. Like one of them's got a little bit of fruity. I didn't know what they were. They were just random, so I named them Carrie, Samantha, Charlotte, and Miranda. Carrie had a little bit of a fruity smell, and like none of the others did. So Carrie's like the only one that we're like, this actually tastes okay, and the rest it's all just like real earthy. Like my girlfriend won't even really smoke it.
I love the earthiness.
Yeah, I don't mind it, and like I've been telling her, like, this is my work weed. This is like what I'm smoking at
and
work.
Also, how long have you been curing it for?
So we cut it down. I cut it down in the beginning of October and hung it for a few days and trimmed it, hung it up again, and then I was taking it I was putting it in glass jars, and then I would put it in paper bags for like 3 or 4 hours at a time, and then put it back in the glass jar, and I did that for about a week.
Okay.
So I only did like a 2-week cure from like, well, maybe 3, from an actual harvest until it was like smokable. I don't know. That's honestly where I feel like I need more experience. Like I know how to clone really well, and like I'm good at like the veg.
Yep.
And I used to flower and get decent amount. I always had different strains, which makes it a pain in the ass. But yeah, the curing is definitely where I feel like I need a little more experience.
The first thing I would suggest to make your life a lot easier is to use like a grow bag or some type of curing bag that you don't have to burp. You just leave it in there.
Not a hanging screen. It's like something else.
No,
I don't think I've ever seen this.
So it's a grow bag. They're actually out of Cleveland, Ohio, but it basically is a humidipack in a bag. It only allows 58 to 62% humidity in or out.
Okay.
So it has UV protected windows, so you can look at it, but you can just put your product in there and see.
Just right after harvest?
No, once it's dry.
Oh, okay.
So once it's dry, you put it in the grow bags and forget it for 2 to 3 weeks, and it'll cure. It makes it a lot easier. There's a new machine out too that's $1,200 if that's something that interests you. But it's called the Cool Cure Unit. It's a Canatrol. They use what do they use? Humidity and like barometric pressure or something to create the perfect environment for cure. Yeah, they're pretty. They're well received in the community that like washes and extracts because you get a higher percentage back from the material because it's in a higher quality. We have one in the store, and when you stop in, remind me, and I'll show you the one we got. We actually got some. Don't tell anybody, but we have some cans. We had it like tucked way back in there. There's a guy there, and he's like, "What's back there?" And we're like,
Hemp flower. That's the answer to everything.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like back in 2013, I was 33 years old. My dad was 61 years old, and me and my 13-year-old brother had to pull the plug on him in the hospital after his liver and kidneys shut down due to the pharmaceuticals he had been on. He cut his arm in a backyard injury, and they put him on every pharmaceutical you could imagine. So for 15 years, my dad was popping all this different stuff and didn't know. This is way before the pandemic, the epidemic, the pill epidemic. And so 15 years later, his liver and kidneys just shut down one day. And he called me and said, "Joe, I'm dying." And literally within a few months, he died. Right after that, his brother, my Uncle Tim, 52 years old, got diagnosed with lung cancer, and the chemo killed him within a couple months. And the doctor gave him the last chemo round and told the family this will probably be the one that does him in. What doctor even says that to the family? So he took a pill, and it killed him that night. It was the last round of chemo. I sat at his bedside and watched him as a very, it wasn't even my Uncle Tim, it was somebody else in that bed, and he died that night. And it was just like boom, boom, and those were the two pinnacles of our family. My dad did all the hell raising, and Uncle Tim did all the cooking at all the family functions. So literally, it was like the two pinnacles. And so, right after that, I'm at home sitting there flipping through the news, devastated, and I saw this little girl having a seizure on the news, and the mom put something under the tongue, and I went back and found it, and it was the Charlotte's Web story in Colorado. Sanjay Gupta went out there and did a whole special called Weed One. on CNN. It broadcasted in 2013. And it was all about Charlotte Figge in Colorado, Dravet syndrome. She got sent home to die. The mom went to the dispensary, bought Hippie's Disappointment weed, because there's no THC in it, Hippie's Disappointment, and made this with this, and gave her some tincture under the tongue, and it stopped her seizure instantly. And so that gained a lot of traction. And when I saw that happen, and Sanjay Gupta said, this is not marijuana, THC from marijuana, this is CBD from hemp. It doesn't get you high, it gets you healthy. And something came over me and said, you couldn't help your dad and uncle, but you're gonna go help the world with this. And so I gave up my real estate career I was doing for 20 plus years, took the money my dad left me for dying in his will, and went and bought CBD oil back in 2013. There was no brands, there was Plus CBD, Charlotte's Web, and that might be it. And I bought a bunch of Plus CBD and basically went around and started giving it away to every old man and every old lady I saw in every parking lot. This is the way I dealt with my devastation. You know, my dad always said, if you want to do something good in life, go help somebody else. So I said, well, now that you're dead, I guess I'll do that, you know, and take the money you left me for dying and do it with that too, you know. And so I went around to every old man, every old lady in every parking lot and say, hey, are you in pain? And they'd be in their walkers and they'd say, yeah. And I'd say, well, let me give you a couple sprays under the tongue of this. And nobody told me no. Everybody was like, yeah, sure. Who are you? What is this? We don't care. And I'd be standing there telling them, like, we all have an endocannabinoid system. This is CBD from hemp. It's not marijuana. You won't get high, all this stuff. And the little old ladies would stand there and they'd say, how long does this take to kick in? I feel better. And I'd be like, oh, really? And so so that just built and built and built. And I realized that this wasn't placebo effect. It wasn't a fad that was going to come and go. And then I was like, but I have to be educated because otherwise I'm a snake oil salesman. You know, like you can't just say, hey, grandma, this oil will cure everything. That's very a misrepresentation of cannabis's potential. And so I went and learned all the stuff, went and got all these accreditations from Cleveland School of Cannabis and all these different places all over the country, just little accreditations here and there, learned physiology to the best that I could, and it all ties in perfectly. So learning the endocannabinoid system will by default teach you about physiology because the endocannabinoid system is involved in all physiology. So it was like perfect for me because I was interested in learning, because I knew I was going to help somebody with this, and I knew that it does help people. So everything I listened to and learned would just sink right in. And then it got to a point where I was meeting little old ladies all of Ohio, meeting them in parking lots, and they'd say, this feels like a drug deal, as I'm handing them CBD bottles through their car windows. And they'd always say, I wish you had a store and this and that. So I finally was like, well, how hard could that be? And I found this place in 2016. And I talked to my landlord, Pete, and I said, I'm doing dietary supplements. He's like, oh, okay. Because that's what they're called, right? But then after I realized I wanted the place, I was like, okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm doing what they call hemp, CBD hemp. It is a dietary supplement, and it is legal, but it's very controversial in Ohio right now. This was back when you'd go to jail for a speck of weed in your ashtray in Ohio. I opened a cannabis store. And so opened this place in 2016 and stood here every day expecting to go to jail and never did. And the next thing you know, we're serving hundreds of thousands of people here for 10 years now. We have a lot of customers that shop here. A lot of little old ladies, a lot of people that are just looking for health benefits that maybe don't want to get high, but want all the health benefits cannabis has to offer. And the fact that cannabis only has one intoxicating cannabinoid out of all 400 and some components of cannabis, only one component is active, psychoactive. It's THC. All other 399 components, because that includes the terpenes and the cannabinoids, all of those are non-intoxicating. So this plant has gotten this really bad name for itself over just one little sliver of a tenth of a 1,000th of what it produces is demonized for that. And so as a result, all of humanity has stopped taking hemp and cannabis products dietary supplemental form. All we do is smoke it. But when we do that, we're not activating 78% of the equation, which is the CB2 receptor. We're only activating this percent of the equation, which is the CB1 receptor. And CB1 is only neurological, but CB2 is immunological. So we need much more support in our body than we do our brains, so we really should be taking this stuff. And when I realized that, it just blew the door off of everything for me. And I fully understand how the body works because of how the endocannabinoid system works. And so 10 years of that, has really painted a picture for me and my staff and everybody that comes into the store that we can really take control of our health by looking at the endogenous cannabinoid system that we all have. Because it literally is the hardwired system that runs all the other systems. You know, they thought our central nervous system ran everything. It don't. The central nervous system is just the electric box panel in the house. All the wires are the nerves, the outlets are the nerve endings. But turns out the endocannabinoid system is the Wi-Fi router of the house. So it keeps all things in communication with each other. Because as soon as two systems go out of communication, they call that autoimmune disorder because they can't tell you why it's happening. But all it is there's a cannabinoid receptor on both sides of the synaptic gap. When the central nervous system sends a signal down from the electric panel, down the wires, hopefully to get to the other side of the wire to send a message, the electrical impulse is supposed to bridge across the synaptic gap and go on down the chain. That's how, like, I call you, you answer the phone. Well, there just so happens to be a cannabinoid receptor on both sides, right in the middle too. So when those receptors are not activated, the signal's sent, but it never gets received. So the central nervous system has to send the signal, or me call you 1,000 times over and over and over again, hoping you'll hear the phone ring and answer it, but you never do. And they would call that fibromyalgia, or multiple sclerosis, or some type of central nervous system disorder. All it is you're calling and I'm not answering. So we don't have communication, so I have no clue what you're doing, you have no clue what I'm doing. Dis-ease. We're at dis-ease. That's all. So if we get the cannabinoids to the receptors, they turn them on, now the impulse can bridge across the gap and go down the chain, and now you've answered the phone, and we can say, oh, hey, immune system, this is the pancreas. We don't need all the inflammation anymore. And now you have your body's back at ease, which is homeostasis. The goal of the endocannabinoid system is to promote and achieve and regulate homeostasis in the whole body, which is balance. So if you have an imbalance somewhere down here, you need to be taking CBD down this way. If you have an imbalance up this way, you need to be taking CBD under the tongue so it absorbs here. It's all about where you're driving the cannabinoid first.
Okay.
Because if you have a neurological issue and you take a true soft gel that don't even burst till it gets to the small intestine, you're going to get a true CB2 receptor immunological antagonist, help with your immune, help with your inflammation, help with all that. And then 2 hours later, it makes its way to the brain, and now you feel the neurologic. So see, you would never do if you have anxiety, you'd never take a pill. If you have an immune system disorder, you probably wouldn't take an oil under your tongue because you need to get the CBD or the THC to the immune system, to the gut, pill. But if you need it to go to the brain or central nervous system, because that's what your goals are, oil. So it's all about just driving the cannabinoid receptor to the right receptor for the right condition. And then you can really achieve homeostasis or balance in those areas. It's crazy amazing. So that's why I love this little class that we do here, because everyone loves to be like, roll it up. I do too. It tastes good, it smells good, it's fun, it's a whole thing. But we just underlook at going this way with it. We do. No one does.
I've always kind of thought like smoking is ultimately a product of the prohibition. Like medicine-wise, most people who need it can't fucking smoke it. So yeah, like ingesting it is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, it goes against logic to eat combustion if you have an illness.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
doctors aren't usually like, here, inhale some smoke. That's what I usually recommend.
Yeah. So it's really, really cool. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna make olive oil. You do coconut, you've mentioned, coconut's cool. Coconut, with raw coconut oil, it'll liquefy under 75 degrees.
I was gonna say it's real low,
76, whatever. But as soon as it cools down and gets to 76, 75 degrees, it solidifies and becomes white, solid coconut oil again. It's not liquid anymore. So that's not great for a tincture that you put under your tongue. You want it liquid all the time. So that's why we're gonna do this, is so that you can basically put it in a jar, and then you can either take dropperfuls of it with an eyedropper type thing like a tincture, or some people just kind of pour a little bit on their rice when you're eating.
I've used it on potatoes before.
Potatoes,
Yeah.
Ooh, it's so good in
Like
potatoes.
Italian seasoning. And
Oh,
herb.
yeah.
It's herby, so it goes well with it.
Yeah, and so and you can infuse, as we'll see in a little bit. You can just throw some rosemary in this machine, and it'll infuse it to be rosemary olive oil, or garlic, or thyme, or oregano, whatever you kind of want for your thing. We're just going to do plain so that it's universal across the board. And so with this guy here, magical butter machine, you know, it's a stainless steel.
Is that what it's called?
Magical butter, yeah. This thing's been out for like, what, 10 years or something?
At least.
It was pretty expensive when it came out, like several $100s. Now it's like under 200, and they do a lot of coupons on their website you can always take advantage of. But this thing works really well because basically you've got 4 different temperature settings here. But if you don't really want to worry about that, you can just do, you got the 1 hour for the oil. It says oil right there. That's a 1 hour cycle, which is what we'll do today. 2 hour cycle is for butter. 4 hour cycles for what they say is tincture, which is kind of similar to what we're going to do today. So technically you could do a 1 hour or a 4 hour if you wanted to. I like the 1 hour because it kind of just, the less time you have in the heat, the less decarboxylation you're gonna have. And we'll talk about that
I was
too.
gonna say, I know I have to decarb reclaim before I use it.
Yeah, so let's get some charts pulled up here and get into this. So cannabinoids are fat soluble.
Yeah.
They bind to fats. Yeah, they don't mix with water. And so that's why we're gonna use an omega fatty acid product, like extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, MCT coconut oil is a good one. There's other oils you can use that are healthy fats. You don't wanna use like unhealthy fats like Crisco and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's all just unhealthy and kind of against the whole grain of cannabis. So, but this machine has a fill line in here that they recommend that you fill it up to, because this blade, this is a temperature gauge, and then this blade right here will emulsify the cannabis, and it pulsates, so it'll blend for like 2 minutes and then shut off for 5 minutes. And then in a few more minutes it'll come back on and blend again. But this thing only goes down so far, see that?
Yeah.
So you really gotta have at least this much oil in the thing, or it's not gonna
evenly
do it as, yeah. And so we'll see. So you kind of just pour this all right on in here. Let's see if I can take this out.
Take one.
Well. And olive oil is pretty, it's been used for centuries with cannabis, actually. There's a lot of talk about, you know, they even talk about this in the Bible. The holy anointing oil and the oil that they would use, it called for 1 pound of cannabuzum, which is the Hebrew word for cannabis, 1 pound of myrrh to, I think it's a gallon of olive oil or something like that, and myrrh, frankincense, and cinnamon.
Yeah.
And so olive oil is just, I love it.
I'll say in that Genius Foods book, you recommend you talk about olive oil and how, like, in America we cut it with like soybean oil and canola products, and that just turns into more triglycerides and blood and shit. And like people in Italy who are eating like a liter of it a week are healthier than we are and shit. Yeah, I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense that we have crappier versions.
Is there enough? You have enough?
Yeah, I think we'll be good.
I think Italy has the oldest person alive. He's like 120. And he has a glass of wine every day, and he had a lot of olive oil.
Yeah,
Well,
and
that's
chocolate.
everything.
Mediterranean
I
diet
don't
is
know about
usually the
chocolate. I've
healthiest
never
one, and
chocolate.
it's like fish and olives
Yeah.
and olive oil.
Yeah, Mediterranean, yeah. There's a something out there called the Master's Cleanse. I've been doing it for a little while now, and I definitely noticed the benefit. Every morning on an empty stomach, you get a shot glass, and you put in some real salt, not table salt, but like Celtic salt.
Sea salt.
Yeah, sea salt. 2 limes squeezed, and then cayenne pepper, a pinch of cayenne, and fill the rest up with olive oil and shoot it down on an empty stomach. It's interesting. It's something to get used to. I put way too much salt and cayenne in it. I didn't realize.
Oh, man.
Well, because it calls for a 1/10 of a teaspoon of cayenne, and also salt, which is technically just a pinch. I didn't realize that, so I'm like dumping. It was rough. So now I'm doing it the right way. It's a lot more palatable. But yeah, it's just in the bottom. Just put in. Actually, the smartest way to do it is to put in the lime juice first, then the cayenne, and then the salt, because it'll float on top of that. Otherwise, it just sinks to the bottom, and then it doesn't really come out, all that salt and stuff. But anyway, you do that every single day, and shoot that down, and it goes straight to the liver. The liver knows exactly what to do with olive oil. Olive oil will cleanse your liver, will detox your liver, like quickly. And so on an empty stomach, you do that shot every day, and you'll cleanse your liver. Olive oil is amazing. And like he was saying, you do want to get the single source olive oil.
Yeah.
Because a lot of olive oil, if you look on the back, it'll be like, sourced from these 12 places.
Yeah, can contain soybean products and shit like that.
So you really got to look at it a lot of times.
Yeah.
Make sure it's organic, like you got here. Make sure it's extra virgin, so it's like cold pressed, no heat applied, all that stuff. So now that we have our olive oil in here, another ingredient to put in is what they call sunflower lecithin. It is basically a really super duper thick, like it doesn't even come out. Oh, there it goes. That's about how much we want right there, actually. So that little tiny amount of sunflower lecithin is what it calls for in the instructions. I used to never use this. What it is a binding agent.
It's thickening.
It's a very thick lipid.
Okay.
It's pure lipid, pure fat, if you will, but from the sunflower plant. And it will cause everything to bind together. It'll cause the cannabinoids to evenly be distributed throughout the whole material without, like, you know, sometimes they say if all the THC's in one side of the gummy and you cut it in half, you won't.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen
I
with
was
this.
gonna say, I knew somebody who made
Okay.
some caramel, and it was very hit or miss, where it was like, man, you don't know what bite you're getting.
Right.
Some people
Right.
get loaded, and some people
Yeah.
didn't feel anything, yeah.
Not cool.
Yeah.
So the sunflower lecithin really kind of eliminates that. And so once we got all that in here, and so there's recipes you can make. We've got that there if you want to. We did that one time.
We will send you, like you said, if you put your email. we'll send you.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I didn't say that. So, cannabinoids are the compounds from cannabis that all have their own attributes. They all have their
Like
own.
this.
Yeah, this is a good slide to see here. And basically, we've all heard of THCA by now. And so what it is, this is kind of mind-blowing for those who have not heard this. The cannabis or marijuana plant, we'll call it cannabis, that's the real term, does not make THC. The cannabis plant doesn't make THC. It is incapable of doing so. However, it does make THCA. The A is the acid molecule still attached to the carboxyl group. So you've got this, you know, THC, you've got these carboxyl groups, and then there's these lines. You've seen the lines before that look like molecules. Well, the very last line is the acid part of the carboxyl group. When it's raw, it's THCA. When it's raw flower, there is no THC in this at all whatsoever. Well, there probably is because due to time, light, and heat. That causes decarboxylation. But if you was to eat a bud right now, you would not get high off that at all because it's 98% THCA. That's why you gotta smoke this to get high off of it. You gotta burn it, you gotta heat it up, you gotta bake it in a brownie, you gotta decarboxylate it, you gotta add heat to it to activate it. Because all cannabis flower in its raw form is THCA. Which is very, very, very interesting. And so what a lot of people do and what this book calls for you to do is decarb the flower first. You want to activate the flower first, making it psychoactive. Because if you was to just eat all this, it's not psychoactive. Now it's tons of THCA, CBDA, CBCA, 200 different A's. The A compounds are more than 1,000 times more anti-inflammatory than the active components. So THC does kill cancer, they say, but THCA annihilates it. Tiny amounts of it too. THCA is such an anti-inflammatory compound. All the acidic cannabinoids are. All the raw cannabinoids are. So what this machine does is it says, hey, if you want to get a buzz from this, you better decarboxylate it first so that it converts from THCA to THC. Otherwise, you're going to be taking this and not really get high off of it. So that's kind of the thing with the decarboxylation. So you put this in a little decarb box that they sell. We have it next door. Put it in the oven for like 40 minutes or something, and there's a little temperature gauge. It'll show you all the time that it's never getting above 347 or whatever the temp is you choose, and it's done. It comes out and it's brown frown now. It went in lime green, it comes out brown. You're gonna be like, ugh, what have I done to my flower? Are we sure we should have done that? Ugh, okay. And that's why I never did it for 10 years. I never did that. And I still don't. Why? Here's why. Is because the acidic, when you're taking this stuff down through the gut, we're not focused on just trying to get a buzz, right? We're focused on health. We're focused on getting the endocannabinoid tone up. We want all this stuff in product, not just that, right? So we're not decarbing nothing today. Here's another reason. But I won't get high? Well, you will. Here's why. Because the temperature gauge on here actually does go up to whatever temperature we want. So what we're going to do is set it on 220, which is the highest temp. That will decarboxylate probably 35% of this material. Or so, maybe more. But it's also going to maintain all this other stuff. So it's going to be the most robust, full spectrum, true cannabis product that you could ever make. Some will be decarb from the heat, most will not. What this also benefits you in the long run is that you can take this stuff in the morning, you can take it during the day, you can take it, and you're not going to be so stoned to where you can't function at work or something, but you'll have just enough THC in the oil to activate the receptor key to lock, but not to couch lock you. But all those other compounds will be there working to have the anti-inflammatory. All of a sudden your back doesn't feel bad, you're out there working, your longevity is much better. You're just going to be noticing a difference when we plug in the right cannabinoids to the right receptors besides just the THC in the brain constantly. We kind of want to take a break from that and ingest this stuff. Because you'll notice when the body is fully at balance, so's your mind. You know, they play together. It's like if your body's all jacked up, you're going to have anxiety all the time. You're going to be running to a substance to try to cure that anxiety, quote unquote. But that's where we're constantly smoking weed. We say it gets rid of our anxiety, but really it brings it on, but we say it doesn't. But it's just this whole constant thing. But once we start taking it down through the gut, the body's like, oh. And now all of a sudden you're not reaching for something, cigarettes, beer, alcohol, whatever it is, right, to get rid of the quote unquote anxiety. So once we get the body in soup, the mind follows, and when you actually do use cannabis, your endocannabinoid system, it'll feel like a warm hug to your soul, and that's how cannabis is supposed to feel, because what you're feeling there is all your cannabinoid receptors receiving all these different cannabinoids and all these different levels and variables, along with the terpenes that actually are the Uber drivers that drive those cannabinoids to the right receptors. So you've got this we're going to have all the terpenes, because if you decarb this, bye-bye terpenes. If you decarb this, bye-bye CBDA, and literally everything. And so that's kind of, and no one talks about that. They want to decarb it all because we're only concerned about getting high. Well, if you do that, it's like smoking. If you do that, you're smoking it again. Your gut's smoking it now, because all it's getting is THC. That's it. And it's going to overstimulate that receptor, and now you're going to get cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome there. With all the cannabinoid receptors going to be like, nope. This guy's overdoing it. There is no balance here, because the endocannabinoid system's goal is balance. So when the person is doing this imbalanced, the endocannabinoid system recognizes that and recedes. You get way much more of a higher experience when you smoke every 3 days versus every day. Swear to you.
So do you need to decarb reclaim then instead of
No, because it's kind of already
I'm
activated.
going to say, it's already been heated, the terpenes are all gone from the dab and all that.
Yes.
But, okay.
Let's say this. You just brought this up. On top of that, why we don't decarb is because once you have this oil, you might decide you want to make a tray of brownies. Isn't that going to be heated up in the oven too? So now we're double decarbing. Well, what happens when we double decarb? What happens when we just put this stuff on the fire and the flame and just let it sit there and don't even care? It goes to CBN. CBN, cannabinol, is a degradation of THC. So when THC gets old, stale, too much time, too much light has touched it, even our LED lights, you think, this is decarboxylating right now, even from these lights. You do not want cannabis to touch light if you want to preserve everything. Because any little bit of time, light, or heat will cause this molecule to convert over to CBN. That's why your old stale weed, that old Mexican brick weed we used to get in high school, all it did was make you tired, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because that weed was so old, first of all, it's been sitting under someone's bed in like a brick, 10,000 pounds on a brick, like, you know what I mean? And you break, way too much time. It's all CBN. Fresh weed, however, we love the fresh weed, don't we? Why? Because all the terpenes are there, all the cannabinoids are there, but they're all like this. And that's why they're so powerful. And as soon as you hit that, the decarboxylation is occurring at the time of combustion. But think of it this way, it's kind of like this. 35% will decarb. Not all that's decarb at a lighter either. So think about it. You're getting, out of a hit of a bowl, you're probably getting about 60% of it's decarboxylated due to the heat, but the other 40% of those compounds in that smoke are non-decarboxylated. They're still A. Here's another thing. A does not cross the blood-brain barrier. It's too big of a carbon chain. It doesn't go through. That's why THCA doesn't get you high. Shorten the carboxyl group by one chain, and it does slip through. That's why THC slips through the blood-brain barrier, gets you high. THCA does not. All the acidics stay in the body. That's why they're 1,000 times more anti-inflammatory than the ones that cross blood-brain and cause psychoactivity. So you start to see a trend of this cannabis plant's medicinal efficacy when we have knowledge of this, because we don't think about all this stuff. Like, wait, why would I decarb if I'm going to bake it 3 more times? It's going to make everyone tired. That's all. And so that's kind of where we're going with this. We're going to have fresh flower, non-decarb, and we basically just put it right in here. You don't need to grind it really, because you destroy the trichomes, you destroy everything, really. They're talking about new grinders nowadays that, because all the regular grinders pull and tear and destroy the components. Whereas there's cutting grinders now that will cut it like scissors, and it doesn't destroy
I
everything.
just use my trimming.
See,
scissors,
yeah, it tastes so good.
Yeah.
Because you're not destroying stuff. So we're gonna put a whole entire ounce in here
To how much oil?
to, we put 1 ounce to 24 ounces of oil. This is 17 plus what we had, I'd say. About another 6 ounces. Or so. And so, once this is in there, you see it in there, you're like, really, are you sure we're doing this? And I like to just kind of get it all covered.
Smells great.
Yeah, it does already.
It's lemon cherry sherbet.
Ooh,
Awesome.
nice. So now that that's in there, we'll get this thing started so that we get the hour process on the way. And so all you do is pop that down. And now it's seated. And so we're going to pick the 1 hour cycle. Well, first we're going to pick the temp. You have to. We'll do 220 because that is going to decarboxylate some stuff. THC, a lot of studies will show that it's around 250 is decarb. That says 347. You know, they've got boiling points and all these
Well,
different.
Delta 9 is up in the lime green.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, 311.
What was I looking at here?
So
Oh,
that's Delta 8.
oh, interesting. So yeah, A little bit less. Somewhere between like 220 and 300 is a good temp. And so this is 220, and so I think that's why it's gonna decarb some stuff, but not everything, which is perfect to me. So we'll do the 1 hour at 220, and boom, that's it. Once the disco party starts happening, you know it's working. And
It just does its thing.
it does its thing for an hour. You can walk away, come back, and it'll be beeping. You'll hear it beeping when it's completely done. It's kind of annoying. It'll just continuously beep. So you'll know. But it'll start blending here real soon and infusing and all of that. And so there we go. You've got your acids, which are raw. They're tremendously anti-inflammatory, especially in the gut. When you decarb it, it's really just going to the brain. And it does go to the body too, because it circulates your bloodstream. But that's a different way into the body than going through the gut and then the liver, because then the liver puts it everywhere, like from the deep inside out. Whereas this is like, oils are kind of like going from the outside in, and they don't get as deep.
So when I make butter, I've always done it for like 4 or 5 hours. I've always told like the longer, the better. But is that because people are talking about decarbing it? And it's like,
Could be, yeah.
yeah. I was gonna say, is there like a time limit when you're doing it? Like I use water to purify it too, so it's then I have to like put it in the fridge and freeze
I've
it.
heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, the water gets disgusting, but yeah, it takes out a lot of like carcinogens and makes the butter cleaner.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always tried to do it for like a good 4 or 5 hour session, but I don't know if that's actually like this kind of makes me think like maybe I'm doing it too long or something.
Maybe. I mean, I think back in the day the decarb thing wasn't prevalent like this. When I had the very first one, they didn't tell you about decarbing at all. There was no such, no one knew. And so I just kind of stuck with that tradition of not decarbing. I have decarbed, and there's a purpose for it. If you want it to get people ripped, decarb it. You know, if it's for
Yeah,
recreational.
I've never decarb before making butter or anything. Like
Yeah.
It just happens in that process. Then.
You're right. That is why. I think that's why the whole 4 hour, 5 hour, all day in the crock pot,
simmering kind of thing.
simmering all day long. I think that was kind of a trend that happened before decarb was a thing.
Okay. They make it
Because
stronger.
yeah, I think so. I just feel like the longer you cook cannabinoids, they degrade.
Makes
They
sense.
do.
Yeah.
I mean, even sitting in the sun will lessen the potency. If you're on the beach and you're blazing, you don't want to let your stuff sit out in the sun while you go in the ocean. You'll come back and that stuff will be crispy, crunchy, which I do like it like that actually. But you'll notice that the terpenes kind of come to a head, and that's why it's perfect for that specific thing. But then too much time after that, it all just goes away. So I used to take my nug and I'd put it out in the sun just to get that crisp, crunchy, sandy texture to it, which is so good to me because it tastes really good. Because I feel like the trichomes, when you dry it out, the trichomes, the oxygen molecule leaves, and now you're just left with the essential oil of the trichome without the water vapor. So that when you hit it, it tastes more terpy when it's like that because of that, I think. But if you let too much time go, that water molecule is what keeps that terpene fresh longer. So as soon as you remove that molecule, now that terp's going to expire in probably 3, 4, 5 days. It's going to taste not that great after that. So it's just very, 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 very interesting how these compounds are so heat, time, and light sensitive. And so, once you craft your art to where you're like, okay, I make the perfect butter for myself. I like it. Once you get it to where you like it, you'll start really noticing there's reasons why you like it this particular way, because you're preserving these, but exterminating these, or vice versa, whatever, you'll figure it out along the way. And so, you've got flavors that you can add to this stuff. If you don't like the way the oil tastes, a lot of people don't like the way it tastes under their tongue, the texture, stuff like that. But if you kind of enhance it, you can make it anything you want. And of course, you know, sweet balance is good with sour and all these different things. You can cross them all to make it palatable, if you will. And you've got herbs you can throw in there, mints, all kinds of stuff. You know what I do? I make, there we go. A little bit of heat there. But I make toothpaste in this thing. I take the coconut oil that you use, and I grow some herbs in my backyard, lemon balm, and I take lemon balm and throw that in there with some baking soda and some salt, and make my own toothpaste that way, yes. And it infuses it beautifully, and then you just basically strain it and strain it.
Oh, where's that?
It might be. So.
What was your tooth? What all did you put in that?
Coconut oil, baking soda, the mint, the lemon balm rather. Oh, and I put my mint in there. I got chocolate mint, so I put lemon balm and mint. But here's what I threw in there last time: CBG isolate. You know the white powder they sell? It's like CBD isolate, or you know what isolates are? So like at my store, for example, I sell isolates, which are white powder of a cannabinoid. Like CBD isolate is 99.99% CBD, and it's like a dry white powder. And that's what people use to make stuff. A lot of these companies will use, it's like an extract, if you will. It's like distillate, but dry powder. And so CBG, however, I use that for my toothpaste because CBG is good for bone health. And it's way more of an antiviral, antibacterial, and antimicrobial than CBD. So I add CBG to my toothpaste because it's good for bone, just for fun, you know.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so you can literally make anything with that.
You cannot, however, get a hold of them through any form of communication message. We're trying to get them in the shop, and we've emailed them. I've reached out to them on social media. Literally have yet to receive a response.
Oh, wow. So there's a little, is there any way to like influence terpenes in strains? Like,
No, not really. That's
Not
part
really.
of the strain.
it's just part of the genetics. Like, you can't just put like lemon peel in the soil and
Correct.
get lemony.
No, because the plant is only going to take what mineral content it wants out of that anyhow. It's not going to take the overall characteristics.
Would you say that you could enhance the plant's potential to produce those terpenes?
Oh, always. You can always enhance whatever
With
the
nutrients.
terpenes that are already
Nutrients.
present.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever terpenes are already present, you can definitely enhance them. That's 100% true.
They can
Still
plant-
That's done
diversity
through.
genetics too.
I mean, not even just nutrient, but overall plant health.
Yeah.
So
Air quality,
basically,
water quality, everything.
any sort of disease or a pest or anything like that is going to degrade the DNA in that plant, and that will thereby cause the terpenes to degrade. Absolutely. So overall plant health and vigor is great for that. There are some certain things they say will almost exacerbate.
I've heard putting molasses in the water before.
Well, I've done that.
Yeah.
100%. Anytime, but that is mostly for overall plant health too, because the molasses itself is food for
Yeah,
food.
it's sucrose.
It's just a carb, exactly. It's
Yeah.
just a carb. So yeah. I mean, I recommend that anytime. You can put,
Okay.
like a lot of the fertilizers at the store, like one that I use in particular is called Honeycomb. It has agave sugar, palm sugar, and sucrose from molasses. So different types of carbs, sugar-based carbs, and that's all, yes, to basically benefit the plant in being a food for the food you're eating, or a food for the soil. You know, any sort of microbiology you have in the soil is going to be fed by that as well. So yes, those are always beneficial. But like you'll see, and you don't see them anymore because that was when they tried to trick you. They used to have the fucking blueberry specifically General Hydroponics. I remember having a Flora Nectar product that was molasses based, but they'd have ones. Oh, this is pineapple. This is blueberry. This is didn't fucking matter. It's not going to use it in that.
I'll show you guys a slideshow from a while ago when we were at the Cleveland School of Cannabis. There's a couple good ones in here. This rabbit hole goes deep.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
Without the ECS, an embryo would not implant into the mother's womb, and a newborn would not be prompted to eat, and developing brain would be left unprotected. That's actually a fact, which is crazy.
It is interesting.
So there is measurable endocannabinoid tone in a fetus. Well, how does the baby get cannabis in its body? It makes it. We all do. We make cannabis, turns out. So endocannabinoid system, endo is short for endogenous. Endogenous means from within. So we make cannabis, turns out. When we exercise, that's what runner's high is. When we sing, pray, and meditate, that's why you feel that oneness feeling, that whole, I just feel so whole and one. When a woman's pregnant, she's producing tons of endocannabinoids. And when we take omega-3 fatty acids like fish oil, doctors prescribe fish oil for depression. Why? Because your body takes that omega-3 fat and converts it to THC. So we make our own THC. It's called anandamide. They called it anandamide, which is a Sanskrit word for bliss. Technically, anandamide is our bliss molecule. You've heard of people say, oh, chocolate's the bliss molecule. Well, chocolate helps the body with its own endocannabinoids. So by default, you'll feel that bliss because of anandamide, your body's own THC, going up and activating the CB1 receptor and causing you to feel just calm enough, not stoned, but relaxed. So our body makes THC, it's called anandamide. Our body also makes 2-arachidonoglycerol, or 2-AG, which is kind of like CBD, we'll call it just for lack of words. But what happens is when you sing, pray, and meditate, and you're always loving and hugging people, and you're always in that good mood, and you're singing in your car and feeling real good, you know, when you feel real good and all that kind of stuff, your body is dumping anandamide, THC, into your bloodstream, out of your fat cells, because you know how THC is stored in the fat. It's so brilliant, the endocannabinoid system's like, wait, we got all these molecules, we can't use them all right now, so let's store them somewhere. Well, cannabinoids are fat soluble, so they store it in your fat. That's why it takes 30 days to get it out of your system, because all those cannabinoids are stored up in your adipose tissue, your fat tissue. It's actually brilliant, because let's say 28 days later, after you've smoked, you're walking down the road and you bump your knee. Oh, well, your body's going to call for 2-AG and anandamide out of your fat, dump it into the bloodstream to send right to that site to start putting in anti-inflammatory properties in your knee. Let's say someone stresses you out so bad you're about to have a mental breakdown. Well, your body's going to dump a bunch of anandamide in, because here's the thing, anandamide hits CB1 receptors, 2-AG hits the CB2 receptors in the body like CBD does. See? And so when you're stressed out, your body will dump anandamide into your bloodstream to activate CB1 to get you just high enough to not be so stressed out, but you're not stoned. See? You can't get yourself stoned. I don't care if you're like running on a treadmill all day while drinking bottles of, avocado oil while singing and praying and meditating while pregnant. Even if you did that, you're still not going to make enough endogenous cannabinoids to fulfill the entire system. But there just so happens to be a plant out there also that makes the exact same molecules that we do, called the cannabis plant. This is mind-blowing. So anandamide is the same molecular structure as THC under the microscope. We make THC, sorry to say to everybody. Yeah. And children who are like 13 years in age and less have very high endocannabinoid tone. You'll notice children are happy. They act like they're high all the time, because they are. They're hungry as all get out. They got the munchies 24/7. Why? Because they're high all the time. And they're usually eating pretty decent. You know, they're getting the good foods and the fats and all the stuff, so their body's able to manufacture these endogenous cannabinoids. And you'll notice kids are running and happy and playful all the time. But then as we age, we start eating wrong, we start not exercising like we did when we were kids, you know, running around all the time every day. We stop loving people like we did when we were kids, that's for sure. We don't forgive like we did when we were kids, that's for sure. So we walk around with anger all the time that you got to use the cannabis to supposedly get out of, right? You know, our endogenous cannabinoid tone degrades over time as we age. So you keep looking at this plant and you're like, wait, so it's almost like we're hardwired to receive not only the cannabinoids our body makes, but also the cannabinoids the plant makes. They're the same thing. And so what's so interesting though is the body only makes kind of 2 compounds. The plant makes 400 and some compounds that all interact with this endocannabinoid system that we have. So when you really start diving deep into all of this, we are hardwired to receive this plant. Here's what this means right here. A newborn would not be prompted to eat. Check this out. So when a baby's born and the mother is the mother, she failed a drug test, by the way. Never smoked a day in her life, but a pregnant woman will fail a drug test right now because her endocannabinoids are so high in her system that it would look like she's smoking while pregnant on a urine test. She's not though. So there's a reason that is so. So when the baby is born and the baby breastfeeds, guess what's in that mother's milk? So much THC, called an anandamide, that it floods the little baby's endocannabinoid system because the little baby ain't in there exercising and creating endogenous yet. So it needs exogenous. Exo means from outside, endo means from inside, right? So the plant makes exogenous compounds, outside source compounds. So same thing with the baby. When she drinks mother's milk, it's like taking the plant almost because it's flooding the whole system. So technically, when that baby is drinking that mother's milk, it's drinking canna milk, and it's getting high, which then triggers the hunger effect in the brain, doesn't it? Give you munchies? Which then triggers the suckling effect in the baby's neurochemistry. How the baby know to suckle? No one told it that. It's an expression of the cannabinoid receptors in the brain from the mother's milk. Cannabinoids cause neurogenesis. Neurogenesis is the formation of new brain cells and new functioning of hardwiring of neurons and neurochemistry. The baby getting high is causing the hunger, which then innately causes the suckling effect. Without that mother-produced cannabinoid, that baby would have never got the cannabinoid receptor would have never went off to trigger the hunger effect, which then triggers the suckling effect. So cannabinoids have a cascading effect on the body. Once you put them in there, people are like, oh, I just want this for anxiety. Okay, cool. Well, they'll take it for anxiety. But then they'll come back 2 weeks later and say, yeah, my anxiety, yeah, that got fixed. But let's talk about the 26 other things this is helping me with that they didn't even know they needed. Because cannabis is a cascading thing. Once you get rid of anxiety, all of a sudden your stomach problems stop. When your stomach problems stop, all of a sudden your inflammation goes down. When your inflammation goes down, all of a sudden your pain goes away. When your pain goes away, all of a sudden that cancer cells get destroyed. All of a sudden and it just goes on and on and on. And so it's not a one thing fits all equation with cannabis ever. You know, ever. Cannabis has the ability to affect our endocannabinoid system, which is the governing system that controls all the other systems. So, you know, your car has all these systems: cooling system, braking system, engine system, transmission system, wiring system, all these systems. Well, our body has all these systems too: digestive system, endocrine system, all these different. Well, what controls all that? What's the controlling system? Well, we're just going to randomly pick one of those 9 systems and call that the one that governs everything? It doesn't. turns out the endocannabinoid system governs all the other systems. And so if you have a problem in these two systems, you don't go after the immune system directly. You go after the endocannabinoid system because it controls the immune system, see? Cannabis is a root fix type of a medicine. Yes, it does heal symptoms and cover up symptoms and, help with symptomatic conditions, but it really, when taken orally, treats the systemic root of the problem, which is always going to be from the gut. All health starts and stops here. And so if you have a healthy gut, you got a healthy body. If you have an unhealthy gut, you're usually unhealthy. And so the only way to get the gut healthy, one of the ways, is to take this stuff through the gut. I mean, yes, all these other herbs and all these other good forms of eating and organic this and clean water and good salt and all this stuff, sure. But does any of that affect the endocannabinoid system directly? No. So we have to use something that affects the ECS directly. And the only thing that does is either endogenous cannabinoids from when you're running on a treadmill for 6 hours, or just taking a plant, taking a capsule and a gummy once a day. And you'll nourish the endocannabinoid system, by default will nourish you. It's amazing. It's involved in everything, turns out. It's the widest, most widespread receptor system in the body. Every single cell has a cannabinoid receptor or more sticking off of it. And it's interesting because you know how trichomes look under a microscope? They look like little mushrooms sticking off of the plant material. Well, our cells are the plant material, and there's little mushrooms sticking off of the cells called cannabinoid receptors, and they look strikingly the same. And literally every cell, they say there's 70 to 100 trillion cells in the body. So if we're just going to go off that basic math, that means there's 100 trillion cannabinoid receptors. But there's way more, because most cells will have a minimum of one. They have to have at least one. But there's always going to be many more. A cancer cell is completely covered in cannabinoid receptors. Think about that. An unhealthy cancerous cell, healthy cells only have a couple receptors, just chilling. But a cancer cell will be completely covered, head to toe, in cannabinoid receptors. It's the body's own way of saying, hey, we got to get a Wi-Fi signal from somewhere, put up every tower we can. And it will just sit there waiting for either you to hop on a treadmill or to drink some avocado oil or sing, pray, and meditate or love someone or get pregnant. Which those ways are never going to even be enough to actually even affect all the receptors all on that cancer cell. So we must take in exogenous cannabinoids to flood the bloodstream and flood the receptors, if you will, so that because as soon as one of those receptors get activated, now it can start receiving signals from the healthy cells, which are all saying, hey, you're a cancer cell, kill yourself, commit apoptosis, and it'll be like, oh, I didn't realize, okay, and it'll kill itself. And that's how cannabis supposedly kills cancer, through these...
Promotes cell death.
It promotes cell death, called apoptosis. Yeah. It does anti-angiogenesis. It will send those signals too, which will stop the spreading. It'll send signals of anti-metastasis, anti-metastasis, where it will stop it from metastasizing. It'll stop it from growing blood vessels. There's like 5 different signals that cancer can receive from healthy cells through the cannabinoid receptors. It's the only way they get the signal, turns out. Otherwise, it's just like the healthy cells are like, but the cancer cell hears nothing. So it's like, well, I don't want to die, so I'm going to support my blood, I'm going to support my growth with through metastasizing. I'm not going to kill myself, because, we want to live. Every cell in our body has the hardwired desire to survive. And so even a cancer cell is going to be like, nope, I ain't dying. So it's going to grow blood vessels to support its growth. It's going to start to spread elsewhere. It's going to not receive apoptotic signals. It's going to try to. And really all it is like a hobbit. It's like if you decided you wanted to go live in the woods and never talk to humans again, that would be like what a cancer cell does. Because you would be isolated. You have no idea what's going on anywhere. It's just you. And you're like, well, I have no help, so I have to do all this stuff. I have to metastasize and spread myself. I have to do everything myself. And that's what cancer does. It's not accepting help from its friends. And so cannabis is help from friends a lot of times. And our body feels the same way. Yeah, that says most, I say all. Well, and they're enzymes a lot of times. They're enzymes that will cause the cannabinoids to be made through enzymatic productions of compounds in the body. CB1 is brain, central nervous system. CB2 is everywhere else. And we know that's neurological. We know that's immunological. However, they do cross though. There is CB1 receptors in the heart, the liver, the GI, the reproductive, and the skin. But those CB1 receptors, when activated in the gut, you're not feeling a head high from that. But your body's feeling something through CB1 receptor activation in the gut. You just don't feel it high up here, but because the cannabinoid receptor, THC is literally a key to the lock. It fits perfectly. Nothing else on the human planet fits in there except for THC and anandamide that we make naturally. There's nothing else the key to locks that receptor. Otherwise, you get high off everything you see, right? And so there's only two things that key to lock this receptor system that unlocks our health. Turns out it's THC. Sorry again, FDA. The FDA considers euphoria as a side effect. They do. Cannabis has side effects. High, euphoria, dysphoria. They call all that a side effect. And so that's why it is so hard to get anything done with it. Because God forbid somebody has a side effect of euphoria and thinks outside the box for 2 hours. Oh, but all the side effects with all the other medical stuff is okay though. And now we need 10 more pills to counter the side effects of the 2 pills we were taking. Now we're on 12 pills due to 1 symptom that we went to the doctor with. It's crazy. And so we got some super science going on here about how endocannabinoids are produced on demand. Our body makes it on demand. Like I said, if you bump your knee, your body's gonna be like, oh, we need cannabis there. They fit like a key to a lock. These are the primary messengers of the body. Oh, this right here. This destroys all medicine. Retrograde signaling. Cannabinoid receptors allow retrograde signaling. What is that? Well, a signal bridges, it comes from this way, the sending neuron, it bridges across the synaptic gap, and it's received by the receiving neuron. Signal goes this way, and it goes all the way to the outlet, which is your nerve ending, so that you go, oh, that is my toe. Ooh, that's how you know. Well, retrograde signaling means that it can come back this way. Nothing has ever really been able to do that. Nothing can cause retrograde signaling that I'm really aware of other than cannabis. Which means I call you, and we haven't talked in 15 years, we're best buds. I call you and say, hey man, I just got your number. I found it. Remember we used to be best buds? But this is your answer, this is your voicemail. And I'm like, please call me back. And then I sit here and wait for 40 years for you to call me back while we have autoimmune disorder. That's what it's like. Retrograde signaling means you call me back and go, bring, hello, hey, it's me, oh, hey. And now we're reconnected, right? And now we're best buds again. That's what retrograde signaling is. Not only can I call you, and you might receive the message, right, on your voicemail, but how are you going to call me back and let me know that you got my message? Well, you better take some cannabis, because that's the only way we're going to have retrograde signaling. And so, literally it controls the release of the excitation or the inhibition. Cannabinoids, here's another crazy thing. Cannabinoids have the ability to upregulate the immune system if you have a low functioning immune system. But if you have a too high of a functioning immune system, CBD or cannabinoids will come in and downregulate it. It's all about balance. You'll notice that ECS is doing nothing but just balancing our systems. Homeostasis, balance, that's what we need. We need to be in not the fight or flight stage with all the caffeine and energy drinks and B12 and all the stuff we're doing, and we don't eat, we don't hydrate, and we're just running around freaked out all the time. Your central nervous system is crashing, it's in fight or flight, you're taxing your thyroid, your adrenals are going all the time, that's gonna shut your kidneys down. You don't wanna live there. That's meant to be when you're picking berries and a cute little dog comes out of the bush and scares you and you run away. That's what adrenaline's supposed to be for. But we live that way as humans, we just literally do. And when you take cannabinoids, you'll notice when you put them under the tongue, all of a sudden you'll get this feeling. What that is the central nervous system shifting, literally, from fight or flight into parasympathetic, eat, sleep, digest, relax phase of the central nervous system. That's where we're meant to live and chill and relax. We're meant to eat, sleep, relax, and forget. Ooh, no one talks about that. The endocannabinoid, everyone says, oh, weed makes you forget. That's why it's bad. So what it does, weed makes your brain categorize things that are of importance to you. And it will categorize things that aren't over here, and it'll make things you do like over here. That's why you can, when you get high, you'll remember all the stuff that you forgot about that you really shouldn't have forgotten. It's because of that. It's literally because of that. If you go to a football game, your brain is in, and you look at the whole stadium and there's 200,000 people there, there's no way your brain would be able to remember all those faces. If it did, your brain would melt down. There's not that much computing capacity. And so the endocannabinoid system knows what to keep and what to throw away. It's just like your email file. You go and you delete all your spam, right? You clear your caches and you clear everything. That's what because then it works better. Your computer works better when you clear your cache. In the same way that when you forget half that crap that causes you anxiety anyway because of cannabis, that's a good thing. Cannabis reminds you that you're okay. I don't care what's going on out there in the world. The real you is fine. Cannabis reminds you of the real you and helps the ego you go away. Doesn't it? Doesn't it kind of crash your ego a little bit? That's why we get paranoia, supposedly, when we smoke some good stuff. Because all of a sudden we'll be standing there and going, oh, I'm really alive. I'm really here. Oh my gosh, I think I need to change some things about myself. Ooh, what did I say to that person yesterday? And that's what the anxiety comes from, is from you looking at yourself. It's introspection. And if you ain't living right or you got something going on in your life that you know you shouldn't be doing, yeah, you're going to get paranoid about that. The weed's going to make you paranoid because you are seeing yourself. Because you'll notice people that have perfect peace can smoke and they don't get paranoid. They get even happier than they already are. So it really just introspects you and makes you look at yourself and deal with yourself. And that's why a lot of people use cannabis, is because they're on that journey of getting to know thyself. And so that's what this plant is really for. You'll notice no other drug does that. What's alcohol do?
It's an allergic reaction, technically.
Technically,
Yeah.
An allergic reaction. And it makes you not yourself. It makes you run away from who you are and what you've been through and what you've done. It's a numbing agent. It's a depressant. No other drug can do what cannabis does. Nothing. Nothing can. It's all depressants, suppressants, or something. Cannabis is an elevator. Maybe that's why they call it getting high, is because you're down here in the river floating in your raft, and this is your perspective. And then as soon as you smoke, it's like the sails lift you up, and now you're up here floating over the river. And now you can see 3 miles ahead and 3 miles back of your past and maybe a little bit of your future. And that's what the high perspective is. But then when you come back down, you come back to reality, and now you're like, that is how weed should be. Because if you stay up here your whole life, because I've been smoking since I was 2, you know, like it's been way too long. But you gotta take breaks. You have to. Because if you stay up here forever, you don't know what it's like to be down here in the raft. You're eventually gonna come down. You can't be up there forever. And what happens is when you get used to being up here, now down here is the new high. You'll notice when you take tolerance breaks, you start to feel really good, and it's like you're high, but in a different way. And you're like, woo, I kind of like this. I'm remembering stuff, I'm like confident again, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's because those receptors are coming back out. Your ECS is retuning itself, getting back into balance again, not over excessively doing these, not under excessively doing these, but balancing that out. And then you'll notice it's better to be kind of here than it is either all the way down here or all the way up here. Because then you still got the up perspective, but you're also grounded too. And that's like a metaphor I like to think about my own cannabis use, really, because I have been in phases where I've abused it heavily. I've also been in phases where I've used it appropriately. And you always go back and forth in between that in our minds somehow. And the endocannabinoid system will tell you when it needs a break. When you're smoking dabs and doing all this stuff and you just ain't getting high at all, you're just like depressed half the time, it's because you've been up here too long. You forgot what it's like to be down here and then go up here, see? But somehow it's that mental thing of, I can't just go a whole day. I can't go 2 days, but you can. You really can. And when you do, you start gaining this momentum. And for me, I sell this stuff for a living. I'm never against it. Just because I may take a tea break doesn't mean I shun someone else for never doing it their whole life. But I've been here and I've been here and I've also been here. And we always fluctuate between those 3 levels of cannabis consumption, if you will. And so taking it to the gut must be implemented. It just has to be. Because then you're actually giving the ECS what it needs, and then when you do it up here, everything's as one. People say CBD steals their high. You'll hear a lot of people say, oh, I don't want CBD in my stuff. I'm trying to get high. I don't want it stealing my high. Well, it doesn't steal the high. It doesn't take away the high. It balances the high. And actually what it does, CBD is like the referee in the boxing match between Mike Tyson and Joe Louis from the Tecmo Bowl. Remember that video game? Mike Tyson will always knock that person out, and that's THC. CBD comes in and is the referee. It's like, whoa, Mike, hold on, don't slug him out just yet. Let's go 10 rounds. CBD balances the high, but here's what no one really talks about is CBD blocks FAAH, F-A-A-H, fatty acid inhibition hydrolase. I can't remember exactly. But what it is, you know how when you smoke 2 hours later you don't feel high anymore? That's because the cannabinoid metabolized off the receptor. It's gone now. THC metabolizes very rapidly off the receptor, and that's why you don't feel high very shortly after smoking. If there's CBD present, it blocks that metabolism. So CBD keeps you higher longer, turns out, because it blocks the metabolism of the THC on the receptor. It slows that down. It doesn't block it, it slows it down.
It's the full body products that they sell at the dispensaries. They talk about that.
Yeah.
I didn't really fully understand it.
Yeah. It slows down the metabolism.
Okay.
It helps it bind to the receptor longer, in the same way that CBD will help melatonin work for people. Some sleep-deprived people say, I can't take the melatonin, it doesn't work for me, melatonin, I've tried it all, even 10 milligrams. Well, it's because melatonin maybe isn't binding to the receptor full affinity. CBD will help the melatonin bind to the receptor full affinity. So a little bit of CBD with a little bit of melatonin will make the melatonin work. Because it slows down the metabolism. That's awesome. Ooh, here's an interesting thought I just had. So CBD can also slow down the metabolism of the liver. Have you ever heard that too much THC can cause liver issues? You ever hear anything like that? So there's talk in the CBD industry where CBD should be treated like a grapefruit. So if you take medicine that says do not take with grapefruit, usually it's statins or blood pressure, something like that, and you take those every 4 hours, if you eat a grapefruit, it slows down your liver. So if you're taking these blood pressures every 4 hours and you're slowing your liver way down, well, you're going to build up toxicity, right? Well, CBD does the same thing. At super high doses, CBD can act like a grapefruit and slow your liver down. It's called P450 enzyme inhibition. It will slow down your enzymatic inhibition of metabolizing. So, super high dose CBD, THC, full spectrum products should be treated like a grapefruit. Meaning you take your product, you take your blood pressure, your CBD 1 to 3 hours before or after your med that says no grapefruit. That's all. You're just taking your CBD 1 or 3 hours before or after that med, so that you don't slow your liver down, so that you don't get into toxicity. But that's super high doses. No one can probably afford to take that much CBD to slow down the liver that much to cause serious issues. But it is to be noted. But it just dawned on me that if CBD is doing that in the brain, it's also doing it in the body too, right? Through the liver, if you put too much in the liver. Well, what's that mean? To me, it sounds like, now that we know the body stores cannabinoids in the fat to draw and call upon it as needed, on demand, it's like our fat is like the gas tank for our cannabis. Yeah, that's interesting. Here's another thing. That thaw inhibition, that thaw is going to cause your body to flush out all the cannabis faster, doesn't it? If it flushes it out faster in the brain without CBD, isn't it going to flush everything out of your liver faster? So here's what I'm getting at. The body is so brilliant that it will store up the cannabis you go to a party and smoke, because it knows that you can't get that much cannabinoids on a treadmill or a glass of avocado oil or nothing. That is precious gold to the body. So it stores it up in the fat, right? Well, wouldn't your body not want your liver to metabolize all that away too quick too? So your body naturally will slow down metabolism. CBD will cause your body to hold on to the cannabis longer. Because back in the day, before all this cannabis wasn't available on every street corner, man would have to walk around and be like, oh my gosh, is that a cannabis plant? I think it is. Oh my goodness. And that one plant would last their little tribe like 2 years because they would moderately use it. Well, in those situations, wouldn't the body be like, oh my gosh, we need to store this somewhere. So let's put on fat. Weed gives you the munchies, which causes you to get fat. All the cannabis you're using will store up in all that fat. Your liver will slowly get rid of that to hold on to it longer. Wow, right? I mean, that's brilliant. So to say that the P450 enzyme inhibition is a bad thing, it probably is a bad thing if you're taking pharmaceuticals. But if you're on plant-based therapies, wouldn't you want to hold on to all that herbs longer? CBD is doing that for you. Also causing your endocannabinoids to stick around a little longer too. In event that you may not get to smoke a doobie again in another 10 years, right? It's brilliant. Your body's so smart. And it does it all through endocannabinoid tone. Your body has no way to communicate with itself unless your ECS circuit breaker's turned on. Yep. That's what the cannabinoid receptors look like on the cells. And you take some under the tongue, and they'll float down the bloodstream. Who are we here for? Where are we? Ooh, what's that? Ba-doop. Activated. Ba-doop. Now this cell is sending and receiving signals from all the healthy cells around it. Crazy. It's like the Wi-Fi. Phytocannabinoids come from the plant. Phyto means plant. And they do react with our receptors in the body. This is so interesting. Cannabinoids produce varying effects. It can do anything. And there is over 200 of them. THC and CBD are the primary or major cannabinoids. All the other ones are called minor cannabinoids. But they do all work in conjunction with each other like a symphony or an orchestra. If you go to an orchestra or a symphony, you want to hear all the musicians, you want to hear all the instruments, you want them all playing at once to create this harmonious balance, this symphonic sound to your endocannabinoid strings. Our endocannabinoid system, you could look at it like a guitar with a whole bunch of strings on it. If you're only plucking the THC string all the time, that's going to get annoying. You're not going to hang out at that symphony too long. You're like, yeah, I've heard this. Yeah. And that's what your ECS does when you only use THC. But if you start using a whole plant spectrum with CBD, CBG, all that stuff, you're strumming the whole strings of the guitar in the same way that you're getting the whole symphony playing to you at once, not just taking the violinist out and listening to that constantly. Delta 9, THC. Oh, here's that carbon chain we talked about. The very last one is the A. This, let's say this is THC, but there's actually one more for THCA. This crosses through blood-brain barrier. One more chain, it doesn't, and that's THCA. It's just that right there. When it's raw, it's THCA, non-psychoactive. Becomes psychoactive when you heat it, which then it fits like a key to a lock to the CB1 and the CB2. And that's where we feel the psychoactive effects in the CB1 that we call high. But it does a lot of stuff. Anti-inflammatory, it's a pain reliever, it protects the brain, it reduces pressure in almost everything, muscles, blood vessels, etc. It promotes appetite and reduces nausea. It can modify your mood. If you're in a bad mood, cannabis can make you in a good mood. It can be sedative, and it can help with tumors too, with all those signalings we talked about. And there you got CBD. It's a little different than the THC compound. But it is non-psychoactive because it doesn't fit in the key to the lock. But it does interact with CB1 and CB2 with a greater affinity for the CB2. So that's why I really say you got to go to the gut where the CB2 is, because CBD binds to the CB2 receptor a lot better than it does the CB1 receptor. That's why you don't get high off CBD. Yep. So we got medicinal effects. When you use CBD with THC, it can reduce the psychoactive effects when they're together by modulation, not by degradation. Well, that's good. And here's all the stuff we just looked at before. Helps with bone growth. That's why I put the CBG in my toothpaste. Then you got the terpenes or terpenoids that exist in the plant. Terpenes are the essential oils of plants. So you know how you got the diffusers at home that you pour the lavender in and it diffuses the lavender smell and that lavender calms you down. Well, lavender is a terpene. It's called linalool, is a terpene name for it. Terpenes affect the olfactory system, which is your smell system, which is in your sinus and nasal, and it's tied to mood and memory in your brain. So when you smell stuff, it reminds you of stuff. Terpenes are the smells and flavors that cannabis has. And so they, to me, are kind of like the Uber drivers that drive the cannabinoids to the correct receptors for what's needed. Let's see if we got another chart of this. Oh, there we go, nice. So, pinene is the pine needle smell, which is the pine smell you have in cannabis, which is actually one of my favorite terpenes, because pinene, alpha or beta pinene, is the pine needle smell. The Chinese will do what's called forest bathing, where they go into the forest and just breathe and bathe, and like breathing, bathing type, in the forest, in a pine needle forest, because they're breathing in alpha pinene, which helps with alertness and memory. So the pine needle smell will trigger memory, it will help you be alert, and it will help with the forgetfulness of cannabis, if there's pinene in there, which is found in no strains now. Please find me a strain with pinene. I would gladly try it. It doesn't exist anymore. It's been bred out. That's why we all go, huh? What was I talking about? After we smoke, because we have no memory. Because of the acetylcholine, the memory molecule of the brain is kind of affected with THC, but pinene does the opposite. It will help with the memory. So it's kind of a good balance for cannabis, and I don't know why it's not in anything anymore. Limonene is when you scratch a lemon and smell that, it kind of wakes up your senses and kind of wakes you up a little bit. That's called limonene. It's found in all your citrus, which is the predominant terpene in sativa. Indica in the couch, sativa clean the whole house. Why? It has nothing to do with the THC or CBD or the cannabinoids. That has nothing to do with that. The feeling that you get, quote unquote, is from the terpenes. They're the Uber drivers that drive the cannabinoids to the receptors that make you feel either up or make you feel either down or somewhere in the middle, which would be a hybrid. Linalool is found in your indicas, because lavender quiets you down and makes you sleepy. Beta-caryophyllene is found in black pepper. Beta-caryophyllene is your black pepper smell. Beta-caryophyllene is what dogs are trained on to find weed. The canines, they make them smell black pepper, because the black pepper smell is very prevalent, and if they can trigger on that instant. Boop, there's cannabis. Beta-caryophyllene is also now considered not only a terpene, but a cannabinoid. Beta-caryophyllene from black pepper. When you put black pepper on your food, you're actually putting cannabis on your food, according to your body, because black pepper activates CB2 receptors in the gut, which cause anti-inflammatory. They've always said black pepper on your food will reduce inflammation in the gut. How does it do that? Through activating the CB2 receptor, the cannabis 2 receptor found in the gut. So caryophyllene is now a cannabinoid too. It's the only terpene that's ever been classified as a cannabinoid now. Seriously, this just happened. It's amazing. Ocimene is found in basil. Love that terpene. Terpinolene is like your tea tree oil smell. Humulene is your basil. Humulene is found, all these terpenes here are also found in the hops plant. You know the hops that you brew beer with and stuff? The hops plant is a cousin to cannabis. They're cousins in the plant family. They're cousins, they kick it. What up, cuz? Because they share the same terpenes. And so that's why, hops has a lot of humulene, and that's why it's very sedative. Beer just really sedates you when you drink the hoppy beer, because of the humulene content is what's going on there. Flavonoids are the flavors. They're like terpenes, but they're called flavonoids. And they kind of add to the flavors. And terpenes and flavonoids are found in all plants, all fruits and vegetables with flavonoids. Here's what's interesting. Let's say the lemon basil or lemon balm plant. It's going to have limonene for sure, because it's a lemon variety. It's probably going to have some beta-caryophyllene in it, because you know that little bit of the peppery essence to that. Maybe that's it for the terpenes. Most plants only have a couple terpenes in them at once, but cannabis can have 200 terpenes in it at once. What? It's a pharmacological medicine cabinet. Cannabis is the entire medicine cabinet of all plants. It has all the terpenes. You don't need to get 17 different herbs. You get one, cannabis. And it has all 17 of the components when you're talking about the terpenes that exist. There's the entourage effect. This is going to be an entourage oil. It's got it all. We didn't heat it up. We didn't burn nothing off. We didn't grind it up even. It's literally whole plant, literally at this point. And so you're going to get the fullest terpene and flavonoid and cannabinoid interactions. They're all there together playing with each other. It's called terpene interplay. A bunch of cannabinoids together is called the entourage effect. A bunch of terpenes added to it is now called terpene interplay. The terpenes interplay with the cannabinoids and make them do different things. That's pretty wild. Oh, here's something to know. This is really good to know. Myrcene is the highest terpene found in indica. Myrcene is mango. You ever hear a thing, if you eat mango before you smoke, you'll get higher? You ever hear that?
I heard that.
It's true, because mango has the most myrcene out of any plant out there. Mango is pure myrcene. And when you eat myrcene, it relaxes the blood-brain barrier, allowing more THC to slip through. That's why you get higher, because myrcene relaxes the blood-brain barrier. That is really, really interesting. And so, if somebody has brain cancer, you better be giving them a bunch of myrcene with their cannabinoids, or the efficacy is going to be greatly reduced. Up versus down. We shouldn't be calling cannabis by strains. This will probably never get fixed, but it kind of should. There are no strains in cannabis. They're cultivars. Strains refer to bacterial infections.
Yeah. Okay.
They do. Strains, like what strain of virus do you got? That's what strains is supposed to be said for. Cannabis has cultivars, meaning it identifies the chemical components of the plant itself. And so it is outdated to call them strain names. A genotype is the blueprint for the growth. The phenotype is the product of the plant genes and the environment. And a chemotype means that plus that will equal this, which is the chemical composition that this and that caused. Yeah? So if you don't really grow it right, you're not going to have the same the same chemicals in the plant. Like he was saying, if you grow the plant crappy, it's not going to produce the fullness of its potential, which means it's not going to produce all the compounds it could have produced if it were grown correctly. And so we got to look at the labs, though. This is the thing, because everybody calls this sativa, they call that indica. It's all wrong. It's all wrong. The only way to know what the cannabis is, the only way to be able to say this is definitively an indica or a sativa is to look at the lab test results. Here's the cannabinoids, THC, CBD, CBC, CBG, CBD, you see them all. And then here is the terpene profile. You can see there's about 4 of them in there. So we would have to look at those terpenes and go back and be like, oh, okay, it has myrcene, it has linalool, and beta-caryophyllene. Well, these are all sedative terpenes. We're going to call that an indica then. Oh, it has a bunch of terpenoline and pinene and limonene. That's going to wake me up. We'll call that a sativa. If you ain't doing it that way, it's wrong. Because we don't know. We don't know unless it's tested. So we got our inhalate with methods of ingestion. You can take this stuff a few different ways. Of course, we know we can inhale it by smoking it or vaping it, preferably vaping, because it keeps the temperature down to where all the components of the plant are still intact all the way through the vaping session. Ingestion means you're going down through the gut to hit that CB2 receptor. The most important part of cannabis. It's whatever's the most overlooked and under talked about, you'll notice is the key to your problem. Is the key to life. Whatever's not talked about is the one that is the most important. In almost every application you look at. We must ingest cannabis or we are missing out on 90% of its benefits. I promise you. And that's what this is gonna do. So that's done now. So we'll let it chill for half a second. You've got your suppositories. Those are less popular, obviously. We do carry these at my store also. But why would you need a rectal suppository if you have prostate cancer? Colon issues. There's no direct route to the prostate other than that way, because your prostate's not directly connected up with your lymphatics and all your different plumbing of your body. The only way to affect that is that way. Women who have that time of the month will do those types of suppositories because it will reduce all the inflammation in those parts. Another reason people would do this is if you got cancer, you would probably want to do some rectal administration because you're bypassing the liver. Nothing's going to go through the liver when you go that way. Because when you go down through the gut, it has to go through the liver, then it makes its way out. But if you go through the outside in the other way, the liver's up here. It's going to go into the walls of your colon and absorb right into the walls and go right into the bloodstream without any metabolism, without any degradation, because the liver metabolizes the cannabinoids greatly, and the liver will convert delta-9 THC into 11-hydroxy. Have you heard of that one? So you know how when you eat edibles, you get way higher than when you smoke? Like you're just like almost intoxicated? Well, it's because your liver will metabolize delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol into 11-hydroxy. 11-hydroxy is a different compound. It's 10 to 100 times more potent than delta-9 THC. So when you eat this stuff, it's like amplifies the feeling by 10 to 100, depending on your metabolism. And so a joint is about 100 milligrams, and we could smoke that right now and you could smoke it all to yourself and be fine. But if you ate 100 milligrams, deuces, you're out. You're going to be asleep for like a day or two. Because your liver takes that 100 milligrams and turns it into 1,000. See? And so that is what we want to avoid with the suppositories. If you don't want your liver to do that and do all that, then you got to go rectal to bypass the liver. And so that's what's so kind of cool about that. And then you've got your transdermal, which is topical application, outside in.
What do we got here?
Turns out cannabis is the most effective, therapeutically active substance investigated in all of history. Man, somebody needs to make a meme about this, because people say there's not enough research. Where's the research? There's 36,000, not one or two, 36,000 published studies and reviews on cannabis on PubMed, which is where all the studies go to live that have been done. There's over 1,000 that are done every single year that prove the efficacy of cannabis. So it has been proven. It's no longer pseudoscience. So let's see if there's anything interesting here. Yeah, so that's kind of that little thing there. So I think we're ready to pour this off.
You need to find the strainer.
Yeah, it's in the sink room, I
Okay,
think.
that's what I thought.
I hope. Let's see what this smells like.
Yeah, this one is.
Smells like food.
Yeah, like food, like a popcorn or what?
Smells good.
It does.
I can't like
I
pinpoint
can't
a
place it,
specific.
yeah.
Good.
Seared meat somehow.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, you got your glove here to wear. When we strain this, this is what you squeeze out and get the last few drips out of it. All the material that's down in the bottom here.
Use cheesecloth for that?
Yeah, it comes with a strainer type thing that you just pour it in. It's got a cheesecloth on the bottom.
Okay.
The sides are like plastic, or not plastic, but
Okay. What is it? I use cheesecloth to
solid.
straighten it out.
Oh, perfect. Nice. I was kind of scared there for a minute. Okay. So this is the way I like to do it. What's that smell like? Isn't that like a food of some kind? I can't.
No.
It smells good.
It smells
It
delicious.
smells edible, that's for sure. So, kind of just all the material is going to be in the bottom, and so I kind of wait to dump it. You know,
Try to do it slowly.
try to do it,
Yeah.
so that you get mostly oil,
Come here.
and I'll try to pour that oil right
Right into the
into the screen. Yeah. So nothing's going on the sides almost. Yeah, and here comes some of the stuff now. And so you see all that ground up in there?
Wow, that's really good.
It's really ground up.
Yeah.
And really what you would do is get it all down in there and then strain it out. Which, do we have something we can get
I'll find some.
something out of there? And just kind of let that do that. I do think the squeezing part is important.
Yeah.
I really do.
I
You know,
do that.
some,
Yeah, when I make the butter, there's always so much still in the
there's so
material.
much, and
Yeah.
you'll notice
Like
that,
run a little hot water over it too.
yeah.
Yeah.
The color of it is a lot darker than the material. In the bottom, when you're straining, you'll notice that the oil is like real dark. That's full of plant compounds, so we do want that, you know, we really do. Some people just toss it like, I don't want to deal with it, but I don't know, I'd say 13 to 22% of material is stuck in there, you know, right now. And it's probably some of the most potent parts because it's still bound to the plant material. So squeezing that out is like, there's probably going to be more compounds coming out of that stuff than just the liquid.
Have you ever made tinctures with alcohol? I've heard like the higher proof alcohols can extract it really well.
It does, yeah. Alcohol extractions, you get a little more terpenes in it, which is nice. But it's just so hard to ingest, you know. The alcohol is because it's like that Everclear.
Yeah, I was saying I had Everclear at home. I was thinking about using it because I don't drink it.
They call it Green Dragon because it's like it's rough. Like how do you ingest that? I don't know. Because when you put it in your mouth, it just burns a hole right. You know, it's like
Yeah.
alcohol is a solvent. It shouldn't like. If you're gonna use, so they make that with RSO. You know, RSO, Rick Simpson oil, is an alcohol extraction basically.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Where you just take a whole pound and you just do a quick alcohol bath, and then you got to take the alcohol liquid like this, and you would purge the alcohol out of it.
Yeah, you let it like evaporate.
Evaporate, yeah. And then you're left with just the resin on the bottom. and then you take that resin, and then you even gotta kind of get the alcohol out of that too if you want. What's nice is that alcohol's not poison. Well, it is poison, but a little bit of residual isn't gonna hurt you if you're ingesting it. You don't wanna smoke that, right? Because there's alcohol left in it still. I don't know if you'd smoke RSO because you got all the chlorophyll still left in the material, and that's not gonna burn well. But alcohol, there is a place for it, but in your everyday consumption, I don't see it.
Yeah.
Because olive oil, we should be taking olive oil every day anyway. We should be taking a shot glass in the morning and a shot glass full at night before bed to detox the liver. So why, and if you're doing the master's cleanse, why not even use your THC oil as, your master's cleanse oil, with your lime, your salt, and your cayenne. You could use this, because otherwise you're using plain olive oil. Why not use infused olive oil? That's where it makes sense to not have it be super decarboxylated right there. Because first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, if you take a shot of infused olive oil, you're gonna be probably not, it's gonna start the day like that. Versus a low THC product, it's just enough to kind of kick you in gear, but not enough to stone you.
Great.
Oh, that'll work. All right. It's still kind of dripping, isn't it? Pretty good, actually.